In a motel, Lucas and Roy watch a TV show about themselves. Reporters discuss how they kidnapped a young boy and are now on the run with him. Roy determines that it is time for them to leave. He enters Alton's bedroom, seated with a sheet over his head, goggles on, and a flashlight, reading a comic book. Roy helps Alton into the car while Lucas gets his luggage. The hotel receptionist notices them as they depart the parking lot and decides to report their car to the authorities. While driving along the highway, Lucas and Roy use their police radio to discover that their vehicle has been identified. They swerve off an exit, and Lucas switches off the headlights. He puts on a set of night vision goggles to view the road in the dark. Three dudes are watching the TV show Roy Tomlin, and the group's leader informs the others that they have 4 days to find Alton and bring him back. The man in charge exits and enters the next room. He takes his seat behind the podium and addresses the audience of around 200 people seated in pews. He recites strange scripture that revolves around dates and numbers. Outside, armed FBI officers congregate around the structure. They gathered many buses and encircled the chapel. They make their way into the church and disrupt the service. They chat briefly with the man delivering the sermon, and he advises his congregation to pay attention to what the agents have to say. The agents inform the residents that they have the warrant to search the entire ranch and that everyone who lives there will be escorted off the property and taken to an old school for questioning. While driving, Lucas swerves to avoid colliding with another vehicle, but another vehicle collides with it. Lucas comes to a halt to check on a woman driving. When a police officer arrives, he tells him to call an ambulance since she is unresponsive. The officer recognizes them from the news and draws his weapons. Lucas must shoot him to flee without causing a scene. He reports an injured cop and an injured citizen using his radio and ensures that aid is on the way before they leave. The ranchers are escorted into the school building after being unloaded from the buses. They are all classified based on their age and gender, and they must complete extensive paperwork. An FBI agent and NSA agent Paul Sevier interrogate the pastor in a separate room. They inquire about the passages they utilize and where they obtained this knowledge from the pastor. The preacher claimed to have written all of them but obtained all of the material from Alton. Paul informs him that the scriptures contain top-secret government information. The pastor explains that Alton would occasionally speak in tongues and that they would record what he said. He also confesses that Roy is Alton's biological father. Roy and Lucas drive inside Eldon's garage. He used to live on the ranch, and he recognizes Roy and Alton and wishes to assist them. Eldon has set up a room for Alton, and he retires to bed. Roy places noise-canceling headphones over Alton's ears as he removes his goggles. Eldon explains some of the recent advances he's made with coordinates from the ranch's scripture in the kitchen. Still, Roy claims he's too weary of hearing it. The next morning, he wakes up to the house shaking, and Roy and Lucas rush to Alton's room to see what's wrong. Eldon stared Alton in the eyes, and a light beam connected them. The room begins to collapse, and Roy hits Eldon with a lamp. Alton's eyes flicker uncontrollably in the sunshine, so Roy swiftly takes him into the shadows and soothes him. Paul interviews numerous ranch members to better grasp their relationship with Alton. Paul discovers that by spreading beams of light from his eyes, Alton can offer them visions and make them feel at ease. Alton used to break stuff all the time, which worsened as he got older. They eventually let him sleep during the day and stay awake at night, which subdued his powers and allowed them to relocate their services to the nighttime. According to the folks Paul interviews, Friday, March 6 will be their judgment day, and everything will be great if they get Alton back before then. The agents cut the interviews short and loaded everyone onto the bus to return to the ranch. Doak and Leva, 2 men, returned to the ranch and got a duffel bag from a secret compartment in one of the buildings. They board a pickup truck and drive away. Roy and Lucas prepare to leave Eldon's residence, and Roy muses about shooting Eldon before getting into his van. On the way, Lucas remarks that Alton appears weaker, but Roy assures him that he is Oak. When they switch on the radio and hear Alton speaking in Spanish, they realize he's using the same words as one of the show's hosts. They decide to stop at a petrol station to resupply and for Roy to use a payphone. They leave Alton in the car, but he detects something in the sky and exits the vehicle, walking out into the parking lot. Alton gets out of the car, and Roy watches a woman approaching him. He hangs off the phone and dashes up at them, shoving the woman away. He's angry with Alton, but he apologizes. Alton also apologizes and points up into the sky. Flaming debris falls from the sky and lands in the gas station parking lot, and Roy picks up Alton and returns to the car to meet Lucas. As they drive away, Alton begins to bleed from the nose, and Roy consoles him. When they arrive at Sarah's house, Alton's mother greets them warmly. They enter, and she shows Alton some new toys she's purchased for him. Sarah tucks him in for the night and is approached by Lucas and Roy as she leaves Alton's room. They discuss how Alton is becoming weaker, and Lucas wants to send him to the hospital. Still, Roy argues that they must arrive at their destination with him in 3 days, and Sarah agrees with Roy. Doak and Levy are sitting in a truck, staring at a house. They prepare their weapons and slip rolls of duct tape into their pockets. Sarah's mother answers the door as they approach it. FBI agents gather in a gas station parking area to survey the damage. According to Paul, a military satellite designed to detect nuclear events was yanked from orbit, and the wreckage landed in the parking lot. Lucas turns the van they used to leave Eldon's residence, and Sarah asks him about his history. He tells her he isn't from the ranch and was Roy's childhood friend before his parents relocated him to the ranch. He hadn't heard from Roy until recently when he appeared on his doorstep with Alton and pleaded for assistance. Roy had Alton show Lucas the visions to persuade him to assist them. They all rush into Sarah's car and drive away from the house. While driving, Sarah inquires Alton about what occurred at the gas station. Alton claims that he purposefully took the satellite out of orbit because he suspected it was being used to follow him down. Doak and Levi search Sarah's house for her car's registration. They search the van to see if the registration is still inside if they don't discover her automobile outside. Alton begins choking and coughing while driving, and light comes from his eyes. The light is so bright that it activates the automobile alarm, forcing them to pull over. Alton slides out of the car and into the grass beside the road, killing the flora around him. Alton informs them that they are being followed and that Sarah and Lucas should drive to a hotel room where Alton and Roy will meet them by strolling through the woods. Roy transports Alton through the forest until they discover a small, water-filled cave. Alton lies down, and Roy suggests they stay there until morning, but Alton argues that he is ready to be outside in the sun. Back in his office, Paul goes over the sermons from the church, marks the coordinates on a map, and then crosses references to the incident sites related to Alton. Paul determines where Alton is attempting to go and tells the rest of the squad. Doak and Levi arrive at Eldon's residence after tracking the van's registration back to him. They quiz him about Alton and acquire some information from him. Roy and Alton stroll out into a wooded area to watch the sunrise. At first, the sun causes Alton to cry and his eyes to flare. Then his body bursts with light, and he surrounds them with a dome. They return to the hotel room Sarah and Lucas have prepared for them. Alton says they witnessed a world erected on top of theirs, populated with people who like him and to whom he feels he belongs. Alton appears to be entirely recovered, and he can make his hands and arms glow. They prepare to leave the hotel, but as Lucas walks through the door, he is fired at. Doak and Levi stop Lucas and Roy as they enter the hotel to restrain Sarah and capture Alton. Sarah breaks free and walks outside to free Lucas and Roy. They gather their belongings and drive to the automobile, hoping to pursue the truck that Doak and Levi left with Alton. There is a massive traffic jam when they get onto the freeway. Roy drives on the side and bypasses most cars. Still, he is stopped by military men and forced to get back on the road. They wait in traffic till they notice helicopters overhead and the abandoned truck in which Doak and Levi were traveling. This confirms to Roy that the government now possesses Alton. Alton sits alone in a chair in a white observation room, where a live feed of him is shown on the other side of the glass, where Paul and several other FBI agents are gathered. They attempt to question Alton, but he refuses to speak to anyone but Paul and only to Paul. The remaining agents exit the room, and Alton pauses the live stream of himself seated in the chair. Alton opens the door that separates Paul from the observation room, and Paul approaches Alton. Alton informs Paul that he belongs in another universe and that he requires Paul's assistance in getting there. Alton's eyes begin to shine, and he fixes them on Paul. When the payphones start ringing, Roy, Lucas, and Sarah are helpless in a parking lot. Roy answers one of them and hears Paul on the other end of the telephone, who introduces himself and explains that he has Alton and wishes to return him to Roy. Paul sends Roy a set of coordinates to meet and then kills the phone. Alton, meanwhile, nonchalantly unlocks and starts a nearby automobile. They all meet in the woods, where Paul restores Alton to them. He asks if he might accompany them, but they refuse. Hence, he uses Lucas' handcuffs to avoid getting in trouble for returning Alton. Sarah and Alton are wearing protective vests beneath an overpass. They get in their car and begin driving toward their objective, even though they know there will be multiple manned roadblocks along the way. When they come close to one of the stops, Roy tells Sarah and Alton to get in the backseat. Roy drives past the soldiers and through the road spikes. The car's airbags deploy, but they continue driving. They pull off to the side of the road, and Sarah and Alton jump out and flee into the woods. Roy and Lucas are pursued by multiple military vehicles as they drive away. Sarah and Alton sprint to a clearing, where Alton stands in the center. His eyes continue to glow, and the ground begins to tremble. The vast buildings and futuristic structures are shown beneath Alton's large dome to Sarah and everyone else. Beams of light walk across the woodland, revealing themselves as humans from that realm. Alton smiles as they approach. Roy and Lucas' automobile finally fails and they crash, landing upside down with both men still inside. Alton bids Sarah farewell and vanishes with the rest of the new world. Soldiers arrive at the wrecked truck and grab Roy and Lucas. Agents question Lucas about Sarah and Alton's whereabouts, but he says he has no knowledge. The agents become upset and send Paul to speak with him instead, pretending they don't know one another. Sarah shaves her head and changes her clothing in a gas station restroom. Roy is imprisoned and has wires attached to his head. His eyes begin to glow as he looks out over the yard.